mental illness is a big issue that goes on, and that really have to do with either delusions or hallucinations. What I mean by that, people can hear voices, and most of the time to go and so forth. These are some people actually smell things that other people are not smelling, or some people can feel like somebody's touching them when they are not being touched. Other people, it depends on the psychosis itself. Some of it is psychosis in voices, commanding voices to tell them to do something, go and shoot such a group. They are representing the devil, and those are delusions that you might have, and so forth. Mood disorders, these are like depression. We used to categorize bipolar under that too. Anxiety disorders, that's where you kind of a little nervous for everything that other people might not be nervous of, and so forth. Obsessive compulsive disorder, these are disorders that we used to have a bit of a problem. So there's some obsession and then compulsion in it. The compulsion is the behavior part of it. And trauma and stressor-related disorders, this post-traumatic stress disorder and other stress-related disorders. Usually this is a life-threatening situation that you might have encountered, and then you can't get rid of it. Many times when you have certain triggers that are similar to what you had experienced when that life-threatening situation happened, then you react as if it's happening again. You get what I'm saying? So these are really important for us to label this. The moment we label this, then we know how to deal with it. Many times when we talk about this, I'm talking to our community here in Zimbabwe. We tend to label it in such ways that we treat it differently, right? If you label something some kind of way, then the way you treat it will be different. I was talking to one of my family members back in Africa. I can't remember. This family member is saying, well, what we need to do is to make sure whether grandpa and the other, whether they did something that is causing these children to, you see what I'm saying? Therefore, then they're thinking about treating it differently because they've labeled it in a certain way. And yet in other cultures, like cultures that are driven by science here, we tend to think that that's just maybe psychotic disorders that need to be treated differently. You see what I'm saying? And sometimes it can cause a lot of commotion in families, especially where I grew up, because other people are thinking, oh, they are sending they're bewitching us and those kind of things. And it is very important for us to give it labels so that we can treat it differently. And just wanted to let you know that even substance abuse related and addictive disorders are also treated as mental health disorders. So even though substance use can be treated differently, and sometimes we categorize it differently, and most of the time I think insurance tend to do that because it's very difficult to treat it, so they want to separate it. But in actual clinical terms, mental illness and substance use disorders go together. And there is also what we call personality disorders. Personality disorders are really like disorders of personalities, like anti-personality disorders, what we call psychopath or sociopaths. They kind of tend to think that other people are there to take advantage of. They are always taking advantage of other people. Can I borrow some money? And they disappear forever. They don't even think that they borrowed. Let's say accidentally you meet at a funeral in the community, they just greet you like they've never borrowed you your $1,000. See what I'm saying? And they do that in a serial way. They do it to everybody, and at a point where it becomes a problem because they are disregarding other people's rights, and they think other people are there to be taken advantage. That's an example of a personality disorder, and usually that's what we call antisocial personality disorder. It's kind of misleading because you think antisocial, it means you are not being sociable, but they're actually saying you are anti-societal norms. So that's what actually, that's why they call it antisocial. You don't regard any norms that govern everybody. You just go about doing your thing, and most of them are pegged in jails. Those are the people who go to jail most of the time. When I used to work at the jail, we would separate antisocial personalities. We wouldn't even try to do anything. We would just categorize mental illness. Those are the people that we try to help, because it's just a matter of switching the switch a little faster than antisocial personality disorders, because it's hard to treat that. It has to do with how you process information coming to you, and it's kind of distorted the way you process information. I would like to talk about the origins of this. Most of the time when we think about mental illnesses and any behaviors that are associated with mental illness, there are certain things that we categorize. This morning we were talking, I can't remember, was it morning or afternoon? When we were talking about things like, okay, so parents, what is the role of parents? I can tell you, most of us parents have what we call the fallacy of external control. We think we control a lot of things and destiny of our children. And for some of us who are lucky to have children who have been successful, we go like, you see, you should follow my example. Please just praise the Lord. because it's really little things that you have control over about that. So I just want to talk about the origins and maybe the framework in which we can understand. I don't even want to call it origins. Maybe I should use the word etiologies of mental illness. Hey, dog. How are you? Thank you so much. I'm so happy to see you here. The Dr. Manungo there was my elder when I was a young pastor at Maybelline Church. And we used to enjoy ourselves quite a bit. Sometimes I'm going like, am I the pastor or am I the elder? Is he the elder or? But that's okay. And then comes from the same village as my wife, and they are related. So there you go. So really, there's a framework that we gotta think about here. It's really called the biopsychosocial framework. In other words, there's biology, and the origin of biology is involved, and then there is also the social piece, and then the psychological piece part of it. So those interplay to a point where even the family, the societal issues can have little influence, especially if things are tilted with the biology, the biological factors there. So it really works in such a way that there is an interface there. The biology where you think about it as the organs, the neurons and how they fire, and then the brain tissues and cells in your brain. That can just be it. That can just be it. No matter you might try to safeguard them from anything, making bad choices. Well, their brain is not firing very well, so they won't even make good choices. And then if they don't make good choices, what's going to happen is that they will exacerbate the underlying issues related to mental illness. So I always want to say mental illness is not we call it behavioral health because there are behaviors associated with it, but it's actually a brain disease. There's something going on with somebody's brain. We should always agree on that. so that we don't stigmatize it. It should be like a disease of an organ, just like a kidney problem, just like a heart problem, just like a lung problem. We might contribute some of this, but really, if we can categorize it like that, we can try to ward off the stigma that is associated with mental illness. There are other issues that I also want to talk about with mental illness. Some of it is psychological, like some of the statements that we call like men don't cry and things like that, and we tend to be conditioned to believe in that fashion. Then if they don't cry, what they are going to do is beat their wives or beat somebody else. See, it's kind of a catch 20-20. You got to do something, and you have to do something that don't get you and your family or other people into trouble. I would rather cry, okay? than those are some of the psychological etiologies that depending on what society is like. Western societies are more stoic and all that kind of stuff, and I'm not sure how we characterize our Bantu African societies, whether they are so stoic. But I wouldn't mind crying, you know. I don't know whether I was socialized like that because I grew up with my sisters and all girls, and I mean, I'm minority in the family and family of origin right now, and even in society. So depending on how you were psychologically developed and how you think about things, it can also exacerbate mental illness or symptoms of mental illness. Today, really, we are going to talk about the psychological piece of it. Well, I'm not a geneticist, I'm not a biologist, so I cannot talk too much about the biology of it. I would just allude to the fact that it plays into it too, and so forth. We can also talk about societal systems that actually contribute to certain disorders. So depending on what's going on, the major treatments are pharmacological treatments and also psychotherapies. And today we're going to focus on psychotherapies, and most of these depend on acuity of a problem. And research supports that most of the time it's good to, let's say somebody is really dragging with depression. It's always good to allow yourself to get some medication first to jumpstart yourself and then wean yourself out of it while you go to therapy. Because sometimes it's really just the serotonin and dopamine is not working well. So you need some kickstart. And then you can go to therapy to help you think differently about your situation. We're going to talk about that too in the coming slides. So really, most of the time, if we are thinking of it as a brain disease, let's not really, I know that sometimes we shun away from pills. I'm not even shoving pills myself. I don't like them, but if you need them, you better take them, because what's going to happen is that it compromises your quality of life. It compromises your social interaction with family and society. Even it might compromise whether you will be able to hold a job or not, because you will be behaving in ways that might make you unsuitable to execute your job duties. So I just want to say, be open about it. And most of the time, it's not like the doctor will shove it to you. You can always say, this is what I want. They will listen to you. So think about this, going into etiology, think about this like a computer, right? The closest thing to our brain is the computer. Think about this. The computer is, when we talk about pharmacological therapies, they are targeting the biology of the disease, and neurotransmitters, hormone. I mean, think about it as an equivalent to the computer hardware, the actual things that you can touch. think about it like the brain, right? And then the psychotherapies are targeting the mind. So the mind resides in the brain. If you had to think about it like a computer, you have a computer, but you put a software in that computer so the computer can execute whatever commands you ask it to. Let's say you're typing a letter, it can type because there is a software that is put there. The software itself is an equivalent of the mind. So in order for us to really begin to treat mental illness, we can't just do pills. There are times we need to also do the programming of the software so that we can think differently about life, about our future, about our past, about the world around us, about our higher power. Whatever it is that you might think, you think differently about it. And most of the time, these are the root causes of mental illness. Think about, I don't know if this is, it just betrays my age. You still remember the story of, it happened in Guyana, where this guy really, Yeah. That story. Those people were really brainwashed to a point where they were sick. They had to kill themselves in order to. So same with Waco, Texas, stuff like that. It happens like that, and it all comes from the way you are training yourself to think, which is a good thing because you can retrain your brain to think differently. I can tell you are doing that. You sitting here, being able, especially the older age, being able to hold jobs here means that you were able to retrain the way you think. Because if you were thinking the way we thought in Zimbabwe, you wouldn't hold a job. They will fire you tomorrow. So in other words, there is hope that you can change the way you think. It might be a little bit very, very subtle, but you are changing all the time. It's always good for you to be intentional about how you want to change the way you think about the world, about the future, about your past, about your surroundings, about your society, about your higher power. It's a playground that is full of games that you might pick up and start something new. And this is very important for us to understand. Those are some of the pharmacological therapies that are there in categories, tranquilizers and hypnotics and antidepressants and so forth. Today, we want to talk about the software, how we can change our software, how we can build resilience so that we are not too prone to mental illness by developing that software part of our apparatus. I would like to start with the Romans 12, verse 2. It says, "Do not conform to the patterns of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind." It's not even saying the brain. The renewing of your what? Your mind. Do not conform. And sister, this was a powerful message. When you think about it, the devil was wanting Jesus to conform, but Jesus had to play the software, had to click a button and say, "Man shall not live," There was something that he clicked a button and he started to utter these words because the software was already written in him. "Man shall not live on bread alone. Thou shalt not tempt the Lord your God," and all that kind of things. Because he had programmed himself so he can be resilient to all those temptations. Basically, this verse is saying that always renew the way you think about things. Don't be stuck on, in therapy we always say, don't be stuck on stupid. There is a certain way you do things, and you get stuck there, and you just, my ancestors used to think like that, I'm thinking like that. I mean, come on. It worked for your ancestors. The world is continuing to move and on, and, it doesn't work now. So renew the way you think, all right? Say that. I don't know. They will have to answer that. They will have to answer that. I don't know. But you always want to make sure that you constantly renew the way you think about things. Okay? So let's start with the ABCs of mental health. Most of the times, most of us are confused. How am I feeling this way? Or why am I acting the way I don't usually want to act? Okay? It's always at the end of it, your feelings and your actions are the ones that are so obvious to you, right? When we say a person is mentally ill, it's because of their actions, right? Or the way they tell you they are feeling. But that's the tail end. If you're talking about ABCs, that's the actual C part, what we call the consequences. In other words, that's the end of the actual sequence of things. We often think that our feelings are caused by other people, events around us, right? That's what we think. My husband, my wife, my child, my what, my boss, my this, everything else that's around us. That's what we think. We may also think that our actions are a direct result of the world around us. However, when you learn about ABC, the first thing that you got to understand is the A. A stands for awareness. That is your perception of events around you, what you are seeing. That's A, okay? And then B stands for beliefs and attitudes that include the way we talk to ourselves. Let me tell you, there is no act, there is no feeling that's not preceded by a thought. Get that? Yeah. If you don't get that, you're missing something, okay? There is no feeling, there is no behavior that's not preceded by a thought. Baba gutu. Murgun tarsa soga pa murgu dai something Pana jwa murgu to funga ipap. You know what I'm saying? You are thinking about something, right? We will not ask you what you're thinking. But that behavior, I can see it. It's only a result of something. And those are your thoughts are also underneath it are your beliefs, what you believe of. We're going to delve into that. Then the C stands for consequences, which includes our feelings and behaviors. So, it may appear that a situation directly causes our emotions. However, this is a big however. What happens here is that, A, we are aware there's always at least one thought that follows an event, okay? And then that thought leads to a feeling or behavior. So there's a sequence here that's going on that you need to always be aware of, okay? And therefore, what we need to understand is that it's not so much about the event that's causing you to feel the way you're feeling or behave the way you behave. It's not the awareness. It's not A. All right? It's how you are thinking about A. If a comedian has to stand here, okay? Let's say I'm a comedian, I start doing my comedy stuff, and cracking and cracking. Some people are laughing, some people are frowning, some people are confused. So you are occupying the same space at the same time, but different faces and different reactions. Why? Would it be me causing that? The way you interpret me and what I'm saying is causing your facial expressions and how you're feeling. You might think, oh, that's crazy. Yeah, it is crazy, but it's more empowering than thinking that everything that happens around us causes us to do it, because then you are just a yo-yo and somebody is a puppet master and you're just going, They're just pulling the strings. I don't want to feel like that. I want to think like, if something happens here, I have to find some ways of interpreting what's happening here and then spin it any way I want. And you go like, spin it? Isn't that falsehood? Well, depends. Because I can tell you, human beings can be so fictitious. We have legal fiction. Mwanangu Lulu, you are in the legal fiction, right? We talk about corporations. Are they really corporations? Are they really corporations? Who is corporation? Is it Ford, the cars, the CEO, the board, the what? It's a fiction, but it's a fiction that works. Okay? It works very well. It makes the world go around in Detroit. And some of it, I actually drove a Ford when I was coming in. It also made my world go around, but it's a fiction. Let me tell you something. Think about the fiction of the United States or Zimbabwe. We talk about Mbuyane and all that, the fiction that we tell ourselves, we say all those kind of things. That fiction, I don't know whether Mbuyane had died while he was singing or whatever, but that fiction made Mugabe and the whole comrades go and die and liberate the country. It worked. Okay? It made people lose limbs, and some of them give the highest sacrifice. It's a fiction that worked. It's not yet home? Dang! I thought this plane has landed already. Yes, I'm talking about let's say your stresses are coming from your family. Is there a way you can interpret what's going on in your family that will allow you to feel better than if you were to be stuck with the interpretation that you are giving? What's the dynamics in your family? That's all I'm saying. Choose a different way of interpreting these events that make you feel better. Is it landed now? Thank you. Really, you think, I just want to go into this fiction thing, and the people always say, oh, maybe I'm stuck on truth and all that. Yeah, truth is very important. But how about if I constantly think about the truth about my family that is so negative? Because all of us have negatives in our families. Can you imagine if we were to be stuck on that? We become resentful about our history. We become even more annoyed about our identity. We are down and under. No, I'm going to choose about the good, to remember and think about the good things about my family. Instead of thinking about, oh, my family is like this, my family has been like this, or my father was like that. People will go to their graves being resentful about their parents. Can you just think about the good things that this old man or this old woman did in your life, so you can celebrate their lives a little bit, just a little bit. It's good for your identity. It's also good for your mental health. Fiction. It's all about how you interpret things. The United States. It's a big country. What is the United States? It's a fiction that we created and we believe it. And we go to war and die for it. But when you talk about legal people, they actually say it's just a fiction. That's a good thing, they admit it. But it works. Money makes the world go round. What is it? It's a little piece of paper that we all decided to believe it is a value of $1, $5, $20, $10, $100. Those who have many of those little papers, then we say, it's just a fiction. We all decided we can believe in it. And then so sometimes I say, some of this truth, the things that we tell ourselves are more powerful than the force of gravity itself. Because can you imagine when Jeff Kennedy says, ask not what your country can do, ask what you can do for your country. In about 10 years, we're going to land on the moon. It was a thought. I can tell you, if you had to ask that president how he was going to, he wouldn't know. He just thought about it and started to inspire people and rally people around it. It became a reality. In other words, I'm saying we got to have a way of framing how we think about ourselves, about our past, about our future, about the people around us. It's very, very critical to choose. So in other words, choose your thoughts. Gain some perspective. I'm going to skip this slide here. Go to another slide. It's quite complicated. What we are saying is that human beings have schemas, like what we call cognitive schemas or prisms. It's like glasses. If you have glasses that are tainted red, you'll see differently than a person with glasses that are tainted blue or any other color. You just need to find ways, which glass of thinking are you going to put on in your eyes and see the world through? You choose. If you choose a blue one and you discover that it's making you feel stressed, drop it. Pick something else that makes you feel elevated and elated, that makes you feel better. It's always about framing the way you look at things and the ability to actually look things in a positive light. So like we said, just wanted to make sure that we're following here. There are events that are external out there. They initiate some thought in our mind. The way we interpret those thoughts is like a prism. That actually taints the way we see things. And the point is, you want to find another prism or another frame of looking at things. So there's this Kant, I can't remember this philosopher, is it Immanuel Kant or the other guy? I can't remember who. But he said something very profound. He says, we see the world the way we are, not the way it is. In other words, we can't blame the world. We might need to think through how we are looking at it. Because there are many ways you can look at it. It's like this way, what we call the technique of reframing. If I had to stand in front of you and go like, oh, I think I'm so boring, people are sleeping in my presentation, that would be disastrous. I just say, people are so tired. It's in the afternoon, they're just coming from eating. It has nothing to do with me. I'm not going to be stressed. You see what I'm saying? Really? Not really. It might have something to do with me. Maybe it might be something to do with my presence, but it won't affect me at all. At that point, I'm so selfish about my mental health. I go like, that's what I choose to think about these situations. If I try to say, oh, dang, they are so bored, I'll be going like, oh, they are bored with me. I'm telling you, I choose a different way of looking at it. That might be true that people are bored, but does it help me? No. It depresses me. I don't want to be depressed. So, how do you know your thoughts are the right thoughts? How do you choose to say, I want to drop this thought, I want to pick up this thought? These are the rules that some psychologists, I can't remember the name of this guy for the life of me. This is what they say. If you say yes to 3 out of those 5, go ahead and think like that. Okay? Are my thoughts based on obvious facts? The fact that people are coming from eating, that's obvious. People are coming from eating. So they just ate, people just ate, so they are bound to be sleeping. Might be true in most cases. In less cases, it doesn't matter, but that's an obvious thought, right? Is it based on an obvious fact? If you say yes, good. Will acting on my thoughts best to help me protect my life and health? If you're thinking the way you're thinking, is it helping promote your life and health? If you say yes, good. Will acting on my thought best help me achieve my short and long-term goals? If you say yes, good. So you're 3 out of what? Out of 5. Then you can go ahead, even if you say no in the other one, because you can't. Most of the time you can't tick all 5 out of 5. So they say if your majority of them are yes, go ahead and do it. And then, will my thought help me avoid dreaded conflict with others? Let's say if I'm thinking something about my wife, she's here, and it's gonna cause us conflict all the time when I think about it and I act on that thought. I better change the way I'm thinking about it. It doesn't help. Really. Or would this make me feel better emotions without using drugs or alcohol? You know? Some people are thinking about their wives and their spouses in such a way that they always want to go to get a drink before they reach home. That's really bad. You know what I'm saying? You go like, let me just get a joint before I get home, or let me just go and get a sip because I'm going to hell already. The way you're saying, if you think your household is hell, then you better change the way you're thinking about it. You see what I'm saying? We have to build resilience by just the way we choose to think about things. Kuzi, you're laughing. You're laughing. Why don't you just tell me, Mom Zugurang? Just tell me, what are you thinking? All right. That's a happy thought. Continue thinking about it. Look, I told you. There is no action or emotion that comes before without a thought behind it. She thought about something. She's not telling us, but it's making her happy. That's better than alcohol or a joint. Make yourself happy, my Chamiri. Yeah. So there are ways to dispute. We call it disputing. You have to dispute it. You have to argue. Because it's an internal dialogue that you're doing. You're really talking. Most of the time we go like, they're talking to themselves. Well, we also talk to ourselves. I mean, we also talk us, but we don't say it loud. Have you ever seen people going, damn? They're walking. I'm going like, what? Damn. They're going. They're talking. I mean, people are talking, guys. We are talking all the time. Even when we are sleeping, we are talking. That's why we dream. Because we are talking. And the point is that then you have to disrupt the talking with many techniques. It's either you have to come up with a list of counter thoughts that you might, when you are triggered to think the negative, you have to think just like Jesus was doing. Most of these are Bible verses. For me, at least, some Bible verses help me quite a bit. Because then I can talk back to the other talking. And train myself to talk like that. This is why we talk about reading the Bible every time. And don't try to read about those, when you're trying to do this, don't try to read about the beast came out of the... Put that down. It's not going to help you. Huh? The beast came out of the ocean. And there shall be no selling or buying. That's depressive for real. You talk about, I have a good plan for you. A plan not to harm you, but to prosper you. Everything works for good for those that love the Lord. Those are really good ones that you can talk back, dispute. A, B, C, D, dispute. Where you interrupt this other thought. You see what I'm saying? Yes, Mama Chamir. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. 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 Yes. Yeah. Let's talk about these are really good point, Doc. Good point. Negativity. People who are always negative and pessimistic, they think they only see the negative, and the pessimist, they're prone to depression. And some of the things that they do, some of the what we call cognitive distortions, they discount the positive. You always have something, there's glaring positive there. They choose not to talk about. They're just going like, oh, this. They discount. They do what we call selective abstraction. They only select the negative out of the whole thing. How was Campmeeting? Oh no, it was so boring. You know, this guy said this and that, I didn't like it. Okay, tell me what you liked, okay? You have to pull, like you're pulling teeth, you know? So, you see what I'm saying? They always, these are some of the statements they say, automatic thoughts. I've always been depressed, and I'm always going to be depressed. I've always been like this, and I'm always going to be like this. They're stuck. All right? There is no way out of this. Things will never get better. It's okay if I stay in bed and just don't feel good. Anxiety. These are people who have a personality or something like helplessness. They're always vulnerable. They're helpless. I can't do this. They are seeking approval. They think they are unlovable. They are always thinking like they are a failure. Those people are prone to being anxious. And most of their cognitive distortions or the twistedness of their thinking lies in that they are fortune tellers. They think the whole thing is rigged. Have you ever heard Trump say, it's rigged? It's rigged. I'm sorry, those who are Republicans here. I'm just giving if you think something is rigged, there's no way, you don't have to do anything. Go like, even whatever I do, it doesn't matter. They are fortune tellers. They think they know the future. They know how it's going to come out. No matter what effort they put, it's going to, they think they're always ready. You know? Yeah. Most of the time, they are reading other people's minds, which is quite impossible, but they think they can do it. I think he's out to get me. Eh? They always think, oh, they're out to get me. I think they're out to get me. So you see how you can be anxious? If you're always thinking that some other people are thinking this about you, then you will be anxious. Right? And then, they always magnify stuff. They always magnify stuff. There is a little thing there, they make it so big, blow it out of proportion. It's like, what? And so they get anxious about these things. Those are some of the kind of, I don't know whether you talk about personality, but you know, these are some of the things that happen, and you get worried, get anxious, and some of them, I can't cope with this. That's their common language. It is unacceptable not to be liked. They always want to be liked. The world is so dangerous. People are not trustworthy. You can't trust anybody. No. You could be hurt by that. You know? They're always thinking like that. And it makes it very difficult. And this is the kicker here. People who are angry. Anger. They say You know, people who are angry, you think they are so powerful, right? No, 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 no. They are the most powerless people. Angry people are the most powerless. This is why they're angry, to protect themselves. They think that others are incompetent. That's just a cop-out. They are entitled and punitive in their nature. The way they punitive, titled, feel powerless, diminished. They get irritated so fast. Most of the time, their twisted thinking leans towards should statement. And I'm telling you, this is very dangerous. Whenever you think things should, stop. Things should not. Things are what they are. Really? Really? Things are what they are. The sun is going to come out from the east, set on the west, no matter what you think. It should be cold by now. No, it's not gonna be. Whenever you use should statements, you are setting yourself up to be angry, frustrated. I like this African American statement. It's really powerful. It is what it is. You know? Oh, man. You can try to influence things, but if it doesn't work, well, it didn't work. Let's move on. Try something else. What do you think about that? It's rigged. Well, the point is that you are here. The attitude is acceptance. You are accepting. No. You need to come for a session. Good. Yeah. Yeah, it is. Yeah, it is. It is rigged, but you can accept that, right? Yeah. I love it. Yes. Yeah. And we it's a different attitude though with it. Yeah. You know? Yeah. I think it's important. Just the way you're saying it, you recognize that this is what it is, and then you have to plan moving forward. How can I live with what I have? And then you begin to think through, just like you said. I don't think you want to be dichotomous about this, like it's mutually exclusive. It's not. You can always say this, because the first thing that you need to do to solve a problem is to accept it is what it is. That's a problem. And then you move forward. Now, how can we, if you can't accept, then you can't even solve for it, right? So I think it's important, that point you're making is very important for us to recognize that, what time am I supposed to stop here? Yeah, a long time ago. let me finish with this one. Let me finish with this. This is an example of what we mean by, let's say, a situation. This is a case of Bill. Bill, maybe let's say he's stuck in jail. He got into jail, right? He was sent to jail. Bill tries to give his son some advice while he was in jail. He calls, but his son gets so angry and hangs up on him. All right? That's the situation, right? That's the awareness, right? And then Bill's beliefs, what Bill is telling himself, Bill believes son should love him, should, statement already, okay? And respect him without question. That's a bad dialogue right there. Bill thinks wife is telling son a pack of lies to turn the son against him because he's in jail. See how he's thinking like that? What do you think are the consequences, the behavior and feelings here? Bill is angry with wife without any confirmation or evidence. That's the wife. What's Bill's action? Calls wife and makes wild accusation and threats to get even. Okay? That's not good. Right? Okay, let's try this. Bill is in jail, sitting, serving some sentence. Bill tries to get to give his son a call and some advice. The son gets angry, hangs up. Same situation, right? This is how Bill thinks. Bill believes it is very difficult for his son to experience the separation of parents. One is incarcerated. Bill is concerned about the outburst, but believes that he needs to be open and patient with his son. It's a same situation, different way of thinking, and the results are obvious. Bill is concerned, of course, feels confident talking with his son later, and then Bill waits. That's the action, for son to calm down before calling him back. It's a little different. It's different than calling wife and accusing them for things that are baseless. All we are saying here, to fortify ourselves and build fortitude and resilience as far as mental illness, you have to choose and think differently about your situation. Number one, the way you think about your past. Don't live in regrets, okay? You are a human being. You're not superhuman. You're fallible. You made a lot of mistakes. Don't wallow on them. All right? About your past, right? Think differently. About your present. About your future. Be confident that the Lord has a plan for you, right? We all know that. About even your God. Sometimes I hear people talk about God like a God who rains fire and brimstone. That's not a good picture of God, I can tell you that. Just choose differently. And some of this you can get help from just talk therapy. If it needs medication, then you can talk to your doctor. Primary care doctors can prescribe that so that you can get that kick. All right? Really appreciate you listening and participating. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Masiriri. Yeah. Positive thinking. I was just telling my... Are we live? Okay. We're not, huh? I was just telling my husband, this is what my therapist has been talking about. Interesting. Positive thinking.